Good morning. My name is Sarah Rogers. I use the she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the Assistant Director for Student Staff Training and Development. So I'm going to be going over emergency protocol for you guys this morning. This is recorded, so we won't be able to ask questions in live time, but feel free to ask any of your questions to your supervisor. I'll give you my information at the end so you can ask questions. But this information is also available for you on the intranet, and I'll show you how to get to it. And you should be able to reference this throughout your desk shifts. Here we go. Let's get started. So the first place that you need to know about is the intranet. This is where our emergency protocol lives. You'll see it right here. So if you do not have an intranet account already, you probably have requested a account through the website, a new user account. Once that's approved, you'll be able to access. You may not have the exact amount of access that I have. So let me show you how to, from the homepage of the intranet, get to the emergency protocol. Okay, so let me make sure that you can see the intranet here. Looks like it. So this is when you are on your homepage, you've just logged in. You're going to go to the left-hand side and look for emergency response, and then the Residence Life On-Call Emergency Protocol. And that should pull up all of the emergency protocol. What you'll notice in the emergency protocol is that each situation is detailed by those that would be involved, their roles. So there's not a desk clerk role for every single situation because there's not situations that you would necessarily encounter at the desk. But those that you would are detailed here, and we're going to basically just be going through them. And I'll try to summarize as much as possible, but basically this is the information that you need to kind of pair with the incident report writing presentation that you saw earlier. Okay, so the first situation that we're going to be talking about is assault. Assault is intentionally, knowingly, recklessly causing bodily injury to another individual or intentionally, knowingly causing physical contact with another individual when the assailant knows that that contact would be regarded as offensive. There is a separate policy related to sexual misconduct that we'll cover at the end. I think this is a good time as any to give a content warning. The content in the protocol can be triggering for anyone who's potentially had an impact by suicidal ideation, self-harm, or any sort of sexual misconduct. So assault is pretty straightforward. You call UNTPD if you see an assault. If you were the individual assaulted, you contact the RAOC, and basically you go through calling each of the individuals that need to be notified. That's mostly what your role is going to be throughout most of these situations. One of the important pieces here, sorry, it skipped. One of the important pieces here that I'd like to note is that it is not your responsibility to physically stop the assault and to clean up anything where the assault occurred. Then, as always, what you're going to see at the bottom of almost every single incident protocol is to complete a report as specified on the report flowchart. The next one, which has the desk clerk actually has a far greater role because this is more likely to occur at a desk than it would just by someone calling an RA or something like that. If you receive a bomb threat, it's important to note not to use a cell phone, activate any sort of alarm, or use the panic button, as these can trigger a bomb. If you do receive a call, that's how we're imagining this bomb threat is coming through. Don't hang up until the caller ends the conversation and hangs up. Do your best to stay calm. There is a bomb threat checklist on that same page that I just showed you through the intranet. And you should be able to pull that up while you're at the desk if something happens like this. You'll contact the UNTPD as soon as possible, but you're going to be on the one main line of the desk. So you're going to try to get another staff member's attention and to call from the other phone line and have them call UNTPD. You'll leave the phone off the hook so they can hear what you're saying. A bomb threat checklist, like I mentioned before, is located on the intranet. You can pull that up at any time. This is basically just going to give you information on what you can ask so you can gather as much information as possible. And it's, best to obviously be done right then and there so that you get as much information as possible. That is not always going to be, easy to do if someone calls and hangs up very quickly, but just as much as you're able to record that information. Of course, once they have ended the call, hang up the phone, and then we do have the capability of dialing *57 so the call can be traced. This is all written out on the bomb threat checklist as well, and it will give you information on a 1-800 number that you're giving. As soon as you are able, call the CDOC, call RAs on their room phones and instruct them to evacuate the building. Take the emergency box. This is a box that's in your hall that we use for any sort of evacuation and hall roster binder to the staff checkpoint location. The staff checkpoint location is the same location that you use for fire as well. Assist the CDOC as needed, and then of course complete a incident report. Contagious diseases. So this is for everything but COVID-19. These are things that we see in a regular year or can see. Obviously, with any contagious diseases, we want to respect the residents' right to confidentiality and only discuss this situation with those that have a need to know. And that doesn't mean gossiping at the front desk or telling other staff members unless that's someone above you or it's outlined in this policy. It specifically notes you are not allowed to disclose the identity of someone with HIV to anyone. Of course, you would, once you receive this information, you would call the CDOC and they will give you further instructions. It's important here that as it says to complete a report, it says do not use the resident's name or identifying information in the IR. What's great about this protocol that I want to point out is that you can pull this information up at any time so that you can go through it if you run into one of these situations. I have it saved as a PDF on my phone. You can access the intranet from your phone, and obviously you'll be at the desk, so you can follow this information pretty closely. So this is an unfortunate thing that can occur on campus, a death of a student. If the death occurred in a residence hall, we will call UNTPD immediately, then contact RAOC, CDOC, do what we can to assist staff by helping to calm residents. Of course, we do not share any information about the situation without any prior permission from our supervisor or CDOC, and take as many, take notes to pass on, and then complete a report as told. Sometimes we hear of a student death that did not occur in a residence hall. This includes rumor of death. So if you get that information from another resident, or even sometimes we get it through social media, you just gather as much information as possible and call the CDOC. Of course, don't share the information without specific permission, and then complete a report. So drug suspicion, this is a little bit different than what we have done before. And this is something that you won't have as much of a hand in because you'll be at the desk. So you're very unlikely to see drugs out in the open, but it's possible. If you do smell drugs or an individual tells you about the smell of drugs, you would contact the RAOC. That's the first step. If it's during the day, you contact the CD. You see drugs, make note of the appearance and location, do not touch them, notify UNTPD, and contact the RAOC. Again, if someone tells you, which is another likely occurrence while working desk, someone comes up and tells you about the presence of drugs that they have personally seen, we keep their identity private when communicating with staff members other than the CD, and then you complete a report. Like I said, this is going to be a very common theme throughout this. Fire or fire alarm. This is something probably desk clerks see the most. Not necessarily the building going into full alarm, but an alarm going off. You're going to follow the instructions on the firebox that you see, send a staff member to see if there is an actual fire. That could be RAOC, CD, anyone that's available, really. You're going to try to call up. You'll call the UNTPD at 3003 to inform them of a possible fire emergency. RAs will begin evacuating the building. They'll call the CDOC and use a cell phone as a callback number because you're going to be going outside to your staff checkpoint location. The staff checkpoint locations I also want to share with you. This is something that you can find on the handy dandy intranet that we were just on. Let me show you. So if you look here, we don't want that. You go here for here it is, evacuation shelter maps and procedures. This is going to have both the checkpoints that you would go for, like I said, a fire and a bomb threat, and any of the locations for sheltering in place. So if you go to, let's do honors, it has specifically severe weather, bomb threat, fire, and so there's something like this for every single hall that you can look at. All right, so you're going to, once you're at the staff checkpoint location, you're going to assist the RAs and CDOCs as needed, and of course, complete a report as needed. I'm sorry, let's keep skipping a little bit. The firebox alarm goes off, but the building is not in full alarm. You're going to follow the instructions on the firebox, send a staff member to see if there's an actual fire. The firebox will give you a location. If there is not a fire, the staff member will inform the front desk of a false alarm. We'll reset the firebox according to the instructions on the panel, and then of course call UNTPD to inform them of the false alarm, and email the CD of the building to inform them of the firebox issue. If there is a fire, so it goes off but we're not in full alarm yet, the staff member will pull the nearest pull station and the building will go into full alarm. You'll call UNTPD to inform them of a fire emergency. RAs will begin evacuating the building. The CDOC will use a cell phone. You'll call the CDOC and use a cell phone as the callback number. And then again, we're going to that staff checkpoint location with the emergency box, binder, and bullhorn. And you'll just assist staff as needed and complete a report. So intoxication, this includes signs of alcohol or drug intoxication, and kind of just gives some overview of what you can do if you see someone who is intoxicated. Signs of intoxication include mental confusion, cold, clammy, and unusually pale or bluish skin, unresponsive or unable to be awakened, slow, irregular breathing, fewer than 8 breaths per minute, and vomiting while passed out. Now, those last couple are more related to an overdose or alcohol poisoning. So here's what we would do in those cases. Obviously, if you see a potentially intoxicated student, attempt to stop the individual to determine their identity and door room number and contact the RAOC. If the resident is exhibiting signs of alcohol poisoning, barely functional, barely conscious, has overdosed, or is non-responsive, like we kind of mentioned with those last few signs, call 911. Contact the RAOC, call the CDOC, and follow the procedures below until the paramedics arrive. Complete a report, obviously, at the end of the situation. Maintenance emergency. This is another thing that desk clerks probably see more than some of the others. So a maintenance emergency is any situation that threatens the safety of a student, could cause damage to the building, or could result in significant cost to housing because of damage. Only the CDOC is allowed to call in emergency maintenance requests, but you can call them to then determine that. So if the key box goes into alarm, contact the building CD or ACD. If the building CD or ACD cannot be contacted, call the CDOC. Some of the examples of maintenance emergencies and when you would need to be calling the CD Temperatures outside the comfort zone, so that's anything that's below 71 and above 78. So that's plus or minus 3 degrees of 71 or 78. Broken glass panes, so if there's broken glass, specifically like significant amounts, a window, no hot water, toilets that will not stop flushing or will not flush, overflowing toilets, sinks, showers, anything that has water, we're not into that. Broken water pipe or flooding, definitely maintenance emergency. The key is broken off in the lock, door will not lock, fire alarm system that will not turn off, and none of the room lights work. Those are all maintenance emergencies. Obviously, get as many details of the problem as possible from the resident, either if they're calling or come up to the desk, and then contact the RAOC and provide them with that information. The next thing is medical emergency. Some of these include an injury, an accident, or an illness. If you, as the employee, is hurt on the job and needs medical attention, please notify the CEOC or supervisor immediately. And then, of course, it's important that you tell a doctor's office that it is a workers' compensation claim. If a student is unconscious or there is severe bleeding, broken bones, anything of that sort, call 911 immediately if someone has not done so already. If a crowd has assembled, have them move back from the area. If needed, call other staff members to assist in crowd control. Assist paramedics as needed as they come. Call the CDOC as soon as possible. Otherwise, proceed to step 3. If the student is having seizure, these are specific seizure-related protocol. Call 911, move items out of the way so they do not injure themselves. Do not attempt to restrain them or put anything in their mouth. Most importantly, especially if you are first on the scene, is to gather information about the injury, accident, or illness. What's the student's name? What is the illness or injury? Where and how did it occur? And where are they going for medical care? Obviously, not at all times will it be possible to gather all of this information. Just do the best you can. Encourage the student to have a friend take them to the health center or to a hospital for evaluation. The student can also always call the 24/7 nurse call line for assistance to get some, triage. In all cases of transport or hospitalization, call the CDOC, and then of course complete a report. The next situation is if we have a missing resident. Our philosophy, I guess you would say, is that residents are our primary business client and have a reasonable expectation of privacy. While we consider parents, guardians to be our partner in the development of their student, there are very few circumstances which would be determined all the way up to the assistant director on call level where we would be able to give a concerned parent their student's information, such as a room number or cell phone number. So despite some of this information not being covered by FERPA, it is covered by housing policy. We do not give out this student information. Even if in the instance of a student deemed missing, our staff would first examine the student's room, call the student's cell phone number. We would not give out the information without prior permission. Very important. If you know the resident and have seen them recently, it's okay to tell the reporting party that you've seen them. So say you saw them just, in the lobby. Get the following information from the reporting party. Get their name, room number, as much information as they're able to provide. Some of this information you can also start gathering from the roster and before you call it up. If the reporting party has contacted you directly, so let them know we'll be able to help them look and that a staff member will be back in touch with them. Ask them, this is important because this has happened before, ask the reporting party to call the hall back if the missing resident is located. So sometimes we get a report of a missing resident, the person who called already gets in contact with them and they never call us back and we're still looking for them. So it's important to note, hey, if you get a call, can you let us know? Contact the RAOC, give them all of the information that you gathered. Obviously, if not available, contact CD, CDOC, and assist them as needed. If we have police in the building, there are many reasons that police would be in the building, not always because there's an emergency. So first, ask yourself, is it an emergency situation? Yes. Obviously, do not get in the way of the police or try to stop them from responding. No? Are they from UNTPD? If they're not from UNTPD, we ask that you ask them this information, and then we contact UNTPD to notify them of law enforcement in the building, and then they will come over to assist in whatever situation is needed. If they are from UNTPD, assist the officer as needed, get their name if possible. There are many situations where it may not be possible to get some of this information. Just do the best you can. You may release the following resident information to a UNTPD officer. So we were talking about missing residents just one situation ago, and we said we never give out, room numbers and cell phone numbers. That the only exception is to UNTPD officers. You can give them their room number, ID number, name of residence in a specific room, any of this information. If an officer asks for any information beyond this list, contact the CDOC and do not give anyone a building roster. Don't print out a roster and give it to them. If the UNTPD officer is serving a warrant, assist the officer as requested, and then of course, contact the CDOC. They may ask, which direction is this room? Then of course, complete a report. This brings us to sexual misconduct, relationship violence, and stalking. This is a really important topic, so make sure that you're paying attention during these incidents. So I mentioned quite a few different things: sexual misconduct, dating violence, relationship violence, and stalking. So there are different definitions of each of these. Dating violence is specifically committed by a person who is or has been in a social relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim, and where the existence of such a relationship shall be determined based on a consideration of following factors: the length of the relationship, the type of relationship, and the frequency of interaction between the persons involved in the relationship. Domestic violence is committed against a family member, specifically a household member, a current or former spouse, a child of a current or former spouse, and a person with whom the victim shares a child or children, a child of the person, a family member of the person by blood, marriage, or adoption, or someone with whom the person lives. So those are very specific definitions to know. Sexual assault is the penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. The term sexual assault also may be referred to as rape. Sexual coercion is the use of manipulation or threat to force someone engage in a sexual act. Sexual exploitation is the next one. It's taking non-consensual or abusive sexual advantage of an individual for the benefit or advantage of anyone other than the person being exploited, including but not limited to non-consensual video or audio taping of a sexual activity or undetected viewing of another's sexual activity. Sexual harassment is unwelcome sex-based verbal or physical conduct that in the employment context unreasonably interferes with a person's work performance or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment, or in the education context is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive that the conduct interferes with the student's ability to participate in or benefit from educational programs or activities. Sexual misconduct is conduct constituting sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, sexual coercion, sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. So sexual misconduct is the umbrella term for all of the things that I defined before, as well as stalking, which is engaging in a course of conduct directed at a person that would cause a reasonable person to fear for the person's safety or the safety of others, or to suffer substantial emotional distress. Reporting obligations. Employees and individuals authorized to act on behalf of the university who become aware of suspected sexual misconduct, so that's the umbrella term, remember, are required to immediately report the suspected violation to the Dean of Students office or to the Title IX coordinator in the Office of Equal Opportunity. Now you would do this by reporting through the intranet sexual misconduct reporting form. That goes to the Dean of Students office, and that would be completing your reporting obligation. Just to give you some information, the UNT Survivor Advocate is a role that connects students who have been impacted by violence to resources and acts as their specific advocate. The advocate can assist a student by filing protective orders, completing crime victims' compensation applications, all sorts of things. They work with us in housing, most often to facilitate a room change if needed. This is a great resource to make sure that you're aware of, so we can give this to residents who might need it. There are a lot of other resources online through the Dean of Students office, as well as off-campus resources. Got counseling and testing, health and wellness center, the psychology clinic, all of these resources on campus. There's also the National Domestic Violence Hotline, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, otherwise known as RAIN. Those are some resources that you can also provide. Something to note, the resident may have a preference of speaking to a staff member of a specific gender or sex. This is something that we can help find, whether that's by calling an RAOC, CDOC. There are multiple CDs on call, and so we can make sure that we're able to get someone for them to talk to. Do not touch the resident without their permission. Be aware of your physical presence. Encourage the resident not to take a shower right away, especially if they might seek medical attention or press charges. Specifically, as it relates to sexual misconduct, let the resident know that you are contacting the RAOC. This is a good time to let them know that by telling you and or the RAOC, you're going to have to report the information. Ask where they would like to wait until the RAOC arrives. If necessary, ask other residents to leave the area. The resident may have a preference, again, like we talked about, to speak to a specific staff member of a certain gender or sex. If the resident wishes to remain anonymous for reporting purpose, let them know that you're required to make a report to staff in the Dean of Students office. If they don't want to speak to the RAOC, I'm so sorry, that's okay. Let the student know that you will still fill out a report and that the student will be contacted from someone from the Dean of Students office, likely the survivor advocate. Provide the resident information on other offices and any sort of resources that you can provide. Obviously, contact the CDOC, and again, if they want to remain anonymous, you can provide the CDOC with details on the incident without any names. The CDOC may ask you to submit more documentation based on the details of the sexual misconduct. In this sort of scenario, you may be contacted further if they need more information. Contact the RAOC, assist them as needed, and then of course, always complete a report as specified on the report flowchart. Now this was gone over in the incident report writing session, so I do want to note that the report flowchart is on the intranet as well as something that you can reference. So if you're ever curious, and if a situation includes more than one of these, it's sexual misconduct, maybe a maintenance issue, you're going to want to do the sexual misconduct report and the maintenance issue separately. These do not need to go together, and the information does not need to be included in the other. Student of concern or crisis. If a student is in crisis, they may exhibit one of the following signs: anxiety, trouble focusing, they're distraught, extreme anger, panicked, unable to function normally, severe depression, debilitating affliction, unable to help themselves, all sorts of things. You might encounter a student in crisis, or you might be informed about a student in crisis by a concerned friend, roommate, or family member. If there is danger of injury to self or others, always call UNTPD and then call the CDOC and contact the RAOC. If you encounter a student in crisis, contact the RAOC. While waiting for the RAOC, talk to the resident and listen to them. Do not leave the resident alone. Find another staff member to stay with the resident if you need to leave them. Do not put yourself or other staff members at risk for harm by staying with a resident that is violent or could hurt you. If the resident leaves before the RAOC arrives, pay attention to so you can give a physical description in the direction that they went. Do not attempt to restrain any residents. Assist the RAOC as needed and complete a report. If you are informed about a student in crisis through a friend, roommate, family member, this is likely to occur through a phone call to the front desk. Contact the RAOC, gather as much information as possible from the reporting party. What exactly did the person say? When was the last time you heard from the student? Has this ever happened before? Let the informant know that you will follow up with them. Pass on all the gathered information to the RAOC and assist them as needed. Complete a report. If there is a threat of suicide, gather information about the situation, resident's name, and where they live. If the threat is made during a phone call, find out where the person is and write down the phone number from the caller ID. If the resident leaves the area, pay attention so that you can give a physical description. Again, do not attempt to restrain any residents. Contact the RAOC and have them stay with the resident until assistance arrives. Call the CDOC and assist as necessary. As always, complete a report. If there is a suicide attempt, call 911 immediately. Call the CDOC, call the RAOC, and gather information about the situation. Pull up the resident's emergency contact information located on the rosters to give to the CDOC. Assist police, CDOC, and RAOC as needed. It is important that a resident's confidentiality be respected. If asked about the situation, you can say, "We are dealing with the situation." Complete an IR as specified on the report flowchart. If there is a tornado, there's two different types of alerts that can be given when there is a potential for a tornado. Either a tornado watch, which just means that we are watching for bad weather, conditions are right for the development of a tornado. We do not sound the alarm for a tornado watch, or tornado warning. This is when we warn others to take action. Tornadoes have been spotted in the area and the building alarm, specifically the tornado alarm, is activated. Eagle Alert will notify campus. You will most likely get an Eagle Alert on your cell phone, on the front desk phone, on the front desk computer. All of the Eagle Alerts will be going off at the same time. This is the time to sound the building alarm. All staff should obviously make sure that they are receiving Eagle Alerts. Once someone receives notification of a tornado warning, their front desk will sound the tornado alarm. RAs and other staff will direct residents to designated secure locations until the tornado warning expires and all clear notice is given. Halls with cafeterias, please call your specific cafeteria to alert them. Housing and Residence Life staff will use weather reporting resources and or updated Eagle Alerts to determine a safe and appropriate time to give all clear and allow students to return to normal use of the building. Often we'll be given the all clear through an Eagle Alert, but this needs to come from a CD. Verbal fights and attacks. General guidelines for approaching verbal fights and attacks. Keep your voice low, do not touch the participants, and do not put yourself in danger. Contact the RAOC, calm and separate the participants if possible, and complete a report as specified on the report flowchart. All right, that was our last protocol.